Pebble Beach, or really what it's known as Car Week because it's way more than just one Concours event, has a bit of a perception problem. It's just for fancy cars and fancy people. In reality, it has a huge impact on the entire car world, not just classic cars. Let's get something out of the way right at the top. I have never been a fan of top 3, top 10, top 5 lists because you and I both know they're clickbait. They're designed to waste our time. But as I reflect on Car Week, and especially as it's changed over the years, I've come to the realization that it's now misunderstood. It is no longer just a classic car show. It is a new car show. Car manufacturers around the world are looking for places to make a bigger splash. So if you've got a fancy car show that takes place on a fancy golf course, really many of them over a week period, that's proven to be a very good place to bring out cars you and I get very excited about. Case in point, Maserati. They've had their sports car for a couple of years now. They've decided to come out with a track-only version, MC Extrema. They didn't just introduce the car at a car show, they introduced the car at a racetrack. So on the Saturday of Car Week, they closed the track for like 10 minutes and had their professional driver drive the first customer car, basically do a test, and then hand the car to the customer for the customer to test the car. And to give you an idea, this car, it's special for a couple of reasons. Yeah, it's a track-only car, racing seats, comes with racing slicks and wet tires. It comes with active aero, not really active aero, you can change these things, this crazy spoiler in the back. Now, why is this important? Answer, it's a track rat's dream car. It's a single seat race car that has an adjustable pedal box, 4-way adjustable suspension, all of the aero is adjustable, then the engine higher output. 730 horsepower, 537 pounds of torque out of the same 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6. Now the wish list, it kind of goes on from there. Dry sump lubrication, double wishbone all around. They do something odd, kind of like Lamborghini. They quote the weights as dry, meaning no fluids in the car, which is somewhat misleading, but still a light vehicle in today's day and age, 1,300 kilograms, which translates to just under 2,900 pounds. Then there's the important business of how many are they going to make? They're going to make a total of 62. All of them are sold. So this was a very unique, the only way to put it is activation, where they had a pit right on the track. They showed all the testing as they were setting up for the laps, and then they did the laps, brought the car back, and you got to speak to the people who were actually working on the car. Fascinating way to introduce a car. But it's not just crazy expensive single-seat race cars that are introduced at Car Week. Lincoln took the opportunity to introduce an entirely new Navigator. I'm not a fan of these vehicles. I get why they're popular. They've gone with this very odd screen. They're introducing some of the odd UX choices that we saw on the Volvo EX90. Huge win for them because they're trying to go to a different kind of person to get them interested into a Lincoln. Now that's all fine and good, but not the most fascinating aspect as to why this is more of a new car show than a classic car show. There are many events that make up the classic car week, not just Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. There's the Quail Lodge. This is another classic car event, much smaller, but this is many more new exotic car manufacturers. Even Lincoln took a booth there and showed their cars, as well as Cadillac with a concept car. But what happens here is not just, hey, look at our new car, and then go to a dealer in a couple of months. People were buying cars directly on the stands at places like Quail. And that in turn brings us to the second reason why the annual Car Week festivities is important. Here on the opposite end of the spectrum, back to classic cars, but not just ogling classic cars, rather its impact on the classic car market, meaning valuations. It's no secret that there are many different classic car auctions that are put on throughout the week. They range from Haggerty with Broad Arrow to RM to Pebble Beach auctions, which is put on by Gooding. And then there's Mecum, and Mecum is kind of the outlier here because it's more of a breadth of cars, meaning low end to somewhat high end, where RM and Gooding very, very, very high end. And this, along with, let's say, the January Classic Car Week in Scottsdale, and to some extent Amelia, they work together to dictate the values, the health or lack of health of the classic car hobby. Now this has changed over the years. It's not just these 3-pillar events where we look to, okay, let's take a temperature of the classic car world. Now you have a number of very realistic options in selling a car from the privacy of your own home, but there, it's not so much the big cars that go there. And what we learned from Pebble Beach is what's the state of the market basically here, meaning not all the way a low floor where it's like a $20,000 car, but let's say $50,000, $100,000 classic cars, all the way up to millions, tens of millions. And the big takeaway this year, the market was soft. Right before we went into the Classic Car Week, there was some volatility in the overall markets in New York and London and Asia. And that did have an impact on big dollar classic cars. So the stuff that normally would have sold for a lot of money, either people weren't bidding or they weren't bidding as much. Now the stuff that was really good, like rare blue chip stuff, that did okay. But the stuff that was just mediocre, that was either a no sale or it was, I have to get the deal of the century to raise my hand. So this was kind of an indicator that the economy is going into a different direction, more this way than this way, and it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine, at least referring to the classic car world. That kind of tells you where the overall economy is going in the future. So it kind of predates either good news or bad news. As we move down to number 3, we arrive at the biggest misconception of Car Week. It's just Pebble Beach, or it's Pebble Beach and Laguna Seca, or Pebble Beach, Laguna Seca, and some fancy car show I've never heard of on the Friday. That has not been the case for many years. It used to be this thing you would turn up on Thursday, stay till Sunday, and then go home. Now it's Monday through Sunday, wall-to-wall car shows, and yes, if you are campaigning a car at Laguna Seca, you could be there for 10 days, and most people that do it, they camp at the racetrack. And this is where we get to the biggest challenge of the week. Everything sits on top of each other, meaning you can't do everything. Add in the fact that it's in Monterey where the traffic is ridiculous, so you have to be very focused on which events you want to get to and prioritize. I've actually done something different this year where I only committed to 3 things each day, and it made for such a better experience. Now there are different events, like there's Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance on the Sunday, a lot of people go to that. There's the track, then there's Quail, which we kind of talked about. And that's different in that it's limited, meaning they limit the amount of tickets they sell. It's an all-inclusive ticket, so it's kind of like going to the Dodgers all-you-can-eat pavilion, although it's not $40, it's very expensive. The tickets, they resell for a lot of money after they go on sale, but the idea is to go to a car show and you're not kind of bumping into each other. That's what makes it unique, and here, I would say this year, they got the right balance of people and food and cars, and it made for a unique event. Then there was a new event that, at least for me, was the St. Lucia Preserve Concours. This was off the charts different, but incredibly unique, because it was at an event that was 10 miles from any public road. So you had to go through a gatehouse and drive on this road almost to an oasis where you have this home. And what's fascinating about this event, it's not one of these situations where you have to submit your car months or years in advance to get it on the lawn. It's one of these things where if you do a rally with the folks who put it on Luxury Rally Club, some of those cars are actually in the event, as well as new cars, classic cars. They even had folks from different car manufacturers there, like Derek, our good friend from Lucid, Chief of Design. Now here's where we take a bit of a detour and we get to another big misconception of Car Week. It's just for rich people and fancy cars. Now, putting aside something that I live my life by, I like to be the dumbest and poorest person in the room. This is an event where you have people from all walks of life, despite what you think. And this is proven by the different car shows that go on. Like, for example, there's Concours de Lemon. And it used to be this thing where people would bring these goofy, stupid cars like gussied up Yugos or beat up Pontiac Aztecs. But this year was something very different because you had stuff that really is not valuable in terms of the collector car market, but something that's valuable to people like you and I, like a Volvo 780 Coupe, or a Saab 9.5 Aero, or a dog hiding underneath a Z31. That's what makes this car week so special. And this isn't just limited to lemons. It's also Concours on the Avenue and 2 car shows no one ever tells you about. Number 1, the GA ticket to get into Laguna Seca for the races. Who cares where you sit? One of the best car shows is walking through the pits, which any ticket will give you access to. And number 2, the best car show of the entire week is walking down the street at night and seeing the cars parked on the street in any town throughout the peninsula. Number 4 is the one you're expecting, but with a bit of a twist. Yes, Car Week is important because of the cars, but rather the timing. Cars you have never seen before, and cars most likely you will never see again, at least in person. For example, in Pebble Beach, they have different classes they do every year. This year, they did wedge shapes, and there was like this crazy Zagato concept, which was cool, but the one that stood out to me was the Aston Martin Bulldog. This is like a square wedge that had presence. You could put this thing in production today and people would buy it. Then there was an interesting turn of events in this class. There was a Ford Probe concept. Remember the Ford Probe back in the day that was supposed to replace the Mustang? That car was shown on the lawn on Sunday. Then the owner drove it home on Monday and it went up in a ball of smoke, basically caught on fire in the trailer, so now it is destroyed. So when I say you're never going to see it again, you're definitely never going to see that car again. Then they had Frua-bodied Maseratis. Oh my God, they were gorgeous. Our friend Peter Clute, he brought a stunning, I think it was a 66 GT40 that competed in Le Mans. The history of this car was unreal. And then we go to the Quail. And there, I have a bone to pick with Porsche. They chose Quail, because remember I said this is a new car show. So they were going to show the limited edition turbo 50th anniversary 911, right? So they decided they're going to show a car with tartan seats, which I'll admit they invented and I put in my car. But then I invented a frunk mat that is made from the same tartan. Guess what they did? They now have a tartan mat that comes fitted as standard into this 911 Turbo 50th anniversary. I am going to sue their ass for this, or we could just settle out of court for a free 911 ST. So have your lawyers call my lawyers. Okay, so legal entanglements aside and getting back to the new car show side of this whole thing, BMW chose Pebble Beach, meaning the actual lawn, to introduce at least the North American debut of the BMW M5 and the M5 Touring, and oh my God, do I want a fast station wagon. And then at the end of the day, when I was walking back up to what I could only say is the best parking spot I have ever got in all my years of going to Pebble Beach, and I got it because I arrived at 4:45 in the morning. So the old adage of the early bird gets the worm, man, oh man, that little Amira that I was driving, it was front and center. It was so close, it was almost in the show, but on the way back to that car, it's the first time I saw in person the new 12-cylinder Ferrari, basically the kind of reinterpretation of the Daytona. I am not a Ferrari guy, but Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, this thing is exquisite. And what a way to say goodbye to a naturally aspirated engine. Thus far, we've covered a lot of reasons why Car Week is important, as well as some misconceptions surrounding Car Week, which brings us to the obvious question. What's the most important aspect of Car Week? And here I'm going to throw you a curveball, absolutely positively, the people. You and I, over the past 15 years, have been very fortunate to meet the key people shaping the car world, the people who design, engineer, and build these four-wheel things that we love. Car Week brings them all together in one place. Had the opportunity to catch up with Alfonso Ailais, remember him, brother Alfonso. He is the chief designer of Nissan and Infiniti. Not only hung out with him and talk about what he's working on, but some of the personal projects he's working on, hung out with his family. Or we talked about the Maserati at the earlier part of the episode. Well, an old friend of the show, Klaus Bousset, who we met when he was reinterpreting interior design at Chrysler, now is building single-seat race cars. Got to catch up with him and his adventures in skiing. But it's not just the people that are making these cars, it's your car friends, my car friends. There are so many people from all over the world that I've gotten to know in different aspects of my life. When I used to live in Europe, when I used to live in New York, that descend upon Car Week, and you get to hang out and just be car nerds for up to 7 days. And that brings us back to a statement I made earlier. I told you guys I like to be the poorest and dumbest person in the room. Why do I say that? Because when in a room with people like Klaus, or Derek from Lucid, or anyone else like the Klutz from Canada, I learn so much from people like that. And that's why Car Week is important, because you go to a place like this and you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and yeah, you all have something in common, but by talking to the guy who's working on a new electric SUV that reinterprets the way electric SUVs work, there is so much you learn that you otherwise wouldn't if you didn't put yourself in that room. And that's why you gotta put aside the misconceptions of Car Week is just Pebble Beach and get yourself there no matter how you do it. Because another big misconception, one can, yes, do it incredibly fancy, one can also camp in Big Sur and get a general admission ticket to Laguna Seca and have one of the best car experiences in their life. Anyway, this is the point of the episode, that I turn around to you guys. What other car events out there? Yes, we know about Goodwood and some others, but what other car events around the world are like this, that give you this opportunity to put yourself out of your comfort zone and learn so much about the hobby as well as the people behind it? I'm even open to other hobbies, aviation, food, breweries, that kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you found this episode fascinating, I would highly suggest you watch one of our members-only episode with Peter Clute and or Dave Kinney, where we talk about the classic car hobby, specifically valuations. You can see those episodes here. Until I see you in the next episode, bis später.